Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to OPN's Dev Talks, where we get a chance to sit down with the developers and get a chance to see gaming from their eyes. For all our newcomers today, we are overpowered noobs. We work to provide a platform for gamers and industry professionals to open dialogues about important PC topics. Check out check out opnoobs.com. Today, we're joined by Alexander from Fairy Tale Distillery to talk about their new game, Das Tal. Now, Das Tal is the world's first open-world survival arena, bringing together mobile tactics and sandbox MMO strategy. And for the first time today, OPN is going to be streaming the game live as we talk about Das Tal with Alexander. Playing the game for us today is DJ Sketch and Alucard. And I'm also joined today by Caitlin, our CEO, Fred, and myself, Shane. Now, let's get started. So, Alexander, how about you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to get into the gaming industry?
Hey, so first, hey everybody. Hi, thanks for having me here. Yeah, I'm Alex. I'm from Germany, Munich to be precise. And it was about 7 years or so where I decided that I actually wanted to make games instead of do something around games. I actually was gonna start up a PR agency for games and then figure out that PR is not really my thing. So instead I actually get to make games nowadays. I've done that for the last 7 years, 100% indie, aka let's see how we survive of this thing without big external funding. And yep, Das Tal is a project that I wanted to make for probably 10 years, so a long time before that. But it actually took me about 4 years to actually figure out how to start making games. And then we're more than 3 years into the production of the game itself. And that's where we are right now.
And how did you guys get together and make that Fairy Tale Distillery? Like, was it like a spark? Did you one day you met a friend and you're like, I got an idea. This is what we're going to roll with.
So the idea for the game, as I said, was about 10 years before. It was basically me playing MMOs for, I don't know, since I was 10 or so, which is 20 years ago now. MMOs, mostly sandbox kind of MMOs. I started with Ultima Online and then got really into Shadowbane and then played a lot of stuff that wasn't that sandboxy anymore because World of Warcraft came out. And at some point I had the feeling that I would like to play that kind of sandbox thing again with lots of PvP, and I really hate all that grind and all the questing and other hoops that MMO devs kind of tend to send you through. And I scribbled ideas for gameplay down for years and years and kind of had the plan to get the start eventually, and at some point decided that now is time to do it. And Sebi, who's my co-founder, who basically did most of the tech for the game, most of the programming, he joined me in my studio that I had before, about I think a year, 1.5 before we got started on this. And then at some point we decided, hey, okay, the two of us, we're gonna go with this project, we're gonna split off, we're gonna start working on this. And yeah, started collecting people, started developing the game, and again, 3 years later, that's where we are.
Yeah, it's interesting because you have a lot of things in here. I noticed that if you played a lot of MMOs, you pick up on right away. One of the first things was when you first start the game, you can choose whether or not you want people to know that you're looking for a clan or you're not looking for a clan. And I like that because it tells me that you guys are probably not enjoying when you first start an MMO and you get the million spams to join a guild. Is that where that comes from?
Kind of. It actually comes from the point that playing a MMO that is all about interacting with other players is completely pointless if you don't interact with other players. And the easiest way to get someone to play with someone else is to be like, hey, I'm looking for friends. And most people who come into the game, I would say 2/3 of all people who come into the game don't have a clan or something, right? And if you have a clan, everything's fine. You find your people, you meet up, you start doing things. But if you're a total noob, then you're like, well, I'm really alone here. And if you make it easier for people to talk to other people, then they actually find those friends and they find time to actually explore the game and stick around. So the solo experience in a sandbox, it's all about PvP, is really hard, right? You're gonna meet a lot of people, and most of those people probably know more than you, and they're better than you. And actually, you're gonna die a lot, and I've died a lot in this game. And it gets easier once you actually have friends to hang out with and figure out how to maybe not die that much until you have the time to actually become better and become good at the game. That's what it's about.
And one of the first things I noticed is really interesting about your game is that you can't see behind you. Now, how did you guys come to that decision? Because it's not normal for like an over the view not to be able to see behind you. You think of like Diablo, you think of like League of Legends. So what said, you know what, you're not supposed to see behind you?
Yeah, so that comes out of the control scheme. Once you guys are gonna start playing the game, you're gonna see that you play the character with WASD, right? You move around WASD and you look with the mouse. So basically, where the mouse pointer is exactly where your character is gonna look at. And so if you compare that movement scheme to the general like League of Legends or Dota or whatever top-down Albion Online click to move thingy, then you'll see that you can instantly rotate your character and I can always see exactly where you're going to look at. And this is also where, for example, you shoot your bow at. And that gives you that thing that like, wait, now that I know that player what the player is looking at, I can actually do the opposite thing and like make it so you can't see behind him. And then it kind of weirdly becomes like a top-down first-person shooter of sorts because you actually have this like field of view. And then obviously that opens up all the fun that comes with people backstabbing you and like people
Yes.
people like chasing you and you're like, oh shit, I kind of have to turn around. But then if I turn around, I become really slow in walking. So should I actually do that or should I not? And that's a couple
Yeah.
of like really
No,
nice trade-offs
and
to
that's
make.
really interesting because I noticed that when I was first starting to play this game was that I was like, it was kind of weird at first to control it, but then I realized like, okay, this is a top-down game, but it almost has a first-person feel to it. Now, was that something you guys kind of organically came up with, or was that something you guys, you wanted to do because you've experienced similar things in other games?
It's 100% stolen. So the game that I experienced this in first was Bloodline Champions, which was or kind of is an arena game. It's just pure PvP arena game, basically a MOBA without all the leveling and the creeps, mostly 3-on-3 PvP, and had this control scheme. It also had the camera mode where the camera is kind of in a spot between your character and your mouse. So you can always like look a little further if you move the mouse around. We're gonna see that later, I think. And it's basically that setup, only that we like tweaked it and refined it for the way our game works. Because in the end, our game where you run way further than in a small arena game kind of needs a couple different tweaks, but it's still basically that system. And a couple of more games have actually adopted that recently, though I actually don't know the names, but it kind of is taking on a little nowadays.
Now, I really wanted to talk about this. This is probably the most important thing, which is you guys are seeking to be the world's first open world survival arena genre. Now, how is that? How is tackling something that doesn't exist right now? Like, what is that for you? How do you get your feedback and how do you move forward with that type of information?
Yep. So open world survival, sandbox, roguelike, MMO. I have no idea how to describe this game. I've had this problem for a long time. It's really hard to pick a genre for it. You basically, the only thing you can do is you make it and you try it out. So the first half year, I think 9 months or so, we spent working on a really small prototype. We called it a combat prototype, which was just like movement and skill execution and line of sight and that kind of stuff in a really, really small game world. But it was really ugly. The graphics were stolen from like game maker games or RPG maker games. Like it looked horrible. It was like really like it was pretty buggy. It supported like 8 players, so it was horrible. But it allowed us to try out all those like second to second interactions that you have with the game, right? The movement, the shooting, the targeting, that kind of stuff. And then from there on, we just tried building outwards. We had this like experience that lasted for 5 minutes, and we just added stuff on top of that. Like we had different classes, and then we had equipment, and then we had crafting, and then we had basic clans, and then we had basic mobs. So basically, like you build the onion from inside out. You add a layer and a layer and a layer and a layer and a layer, and you ask people for feedback all the way. And we have like literally from the first week of development had some sort of a prototype alpha of some sort running where people played the game and told us what they liked and what they hated, and they did say that things, and then I had to make decisions like, okay, this thing I wanted is really bad and I should just change it. Yep, and that's how it goes.
Well, and,
We
and
try
how
it out.
has the feedback been for you guys? Like since, putting it out there, I mean, how much has the feedback contributed to you changing the game and moving forward with it?
Um, in a lot of ways, so feedback is generally like very split. It's either, wow, I love this game, this is so awesome, I just played 10 hours and I can't stop. That's something that someone wrote me like literally today, who started yesterday. And then sometimes like, what the fuck, this crappy gang box, I hate it, I just died 10 times, I'm never gonna play this shit again. And it's really split between those. There's not a lot of like middle ground where people are like, yeah, it's kind of okay, but no. So there are some points that are not gonna change. For example, this is it's a full friendly fire game. So that means every single ability that you cast will affect both friends and allies, right? And that leads to you like hitting your teammates if you just spam your projectiles, or that leads to you healing the enemies if you're not good at targeting. And people have complained about that, and we have made tweaks such as that if we have a single target ability that affects an area, and this area has 2 players in there, and one of them is a friend and one is an enemy, then it will actually like hit the friend first, right? But what we're not going to do is build something in where like, okay, all your clanmates are now invulnerable to you, just spam away, because that is contrary to the core of the game. The game is about you actually figuring out where you're going to hit, where you're going to shoot, and like maybe just like don't do that if you're not sure that you actually have a good shot, because that leads to a totally different gameplay, and that's what we want.
And
so there's always this
that.
like immobile core that we're not going to change, but there's other stuff that we're going to change to actually make it playable, like stuff that like in the original idea couldn't have been in there because we didn't know about it.
And that's fantastic. Like I was playing the game and I realized that the skill shots matter in this game. It's not like a League of Legends when you shoot a laser beam and it goes through your teammate. And in this game, skill shots matter. You have to pick and choose which ones you're going to do. And how did you guys come to that decision that you decided that not only friendly fire is on, but you can actually do damage to yourself, which is pretty crazy?
So I would say in League and games like this, skill shots also matter, but they're sometimes a little less important. I mean, like it matters, do you actually hit the enemy, but it rarely lets you like actually hit your teammates. Because in a game like that leads to like really easy grieving of your own game if like feeding isn't enough. So I know why they did that. I honestly don't remember at all when we came up with that concept. It was always built in. I think that was a thing since we started working, like at least 4 years ago. This has always been the core of the games. We want full friendly fire because it goes away from, I kind of started to remember. So it comes from the experience of playing MMOs like Shadowbane, and I don't know if anyone remembers Shadowbane because it ran for only like 3 or 4 years. Not many people played it. It was a really hardcore sandbox MMO with a complete PvP focus on like large scale fights. And in Shadowbane, for a long time, the dominating strategy was to put every single player you had in your guild and your alliance, like 50 people in one spot. And because there was no collision between players, and start shooting area effect abilities at the enemies who are doing the exact same thing. So it was like 2 blobs of players and they're shooting like AoE spells at each other. And I was like, yeah, well, that's kind of boring. That's not really how I want to play. And that's kind of like what a lot of MMOs eventually devolved into. Dark Age of Camelot had that problem too, and like many had. So I wanted to make something where it actually mattered that you like not just spam stuff. And that's why in our game, there are a couple of like really strong abilities that are like area effect abilities. They do massive damage, like the ground is burning. But that's totally fine because you actually have to use them the right way, else you're not overpowered, because else you just hit your teammates, and that's not good at all. So it's always about this like feeling of you're responsible for what you're doing. You're not just mindlessly spamming away. This is not Diablo.
No, I agree with you. It definitely makes you feel like I was saying, like each skill shot matters. And I think that's what adds to your survival part of the game. When I'm walking around, I get so scared because I don't know if this is an NPC or if this is a player. Like right away, it kind of freaks you out for a second. When I first started the game, I see enemies attacking me, and I was thinking, why are these players hitting me? I'm not doing anything. Was that the point of the game, to get that survival feel to it, to kind of make you always second guessing where you're going?
Kinda and kind of not. So this is a hard question, because like the game for me is all about this experience of someone could attack you, but they don't, right? So in most games, you are either a friend or an enemy, right? You play World of Warcraft and you're in the Alliance, so everybody who's in the Horde is the enemy, right? You do evil things to them. If you meet them, you cannot talk to them, they're bad. and there's the other 50% or whatever, 40% of the population that is in your faction, and those are your friends, and you need to be good to them, and you can fight against them and nothing. I don't like that. I don't like it when games force me to like play one certain way the game wants me to play. I like it when people actually have like the choice to attack me or not. And so when I play the game myself, I'm kind of like a split personality. I generally attack people on sight because I really love PvP. That's why I'm in the game. But also I really enjoy being nice to newbies. And like I could slaughter them if I wanted, but I don't have to. I'll just be nice to them. I'll give them a little bit of equipment. And it's a really, really like nice feeling. It's like this person could totally kill me, but they don't because they wanna and not because they're forced.
No, it's totally awesome. I like I said, it really gives you a an eerie feel almost. Like I'm walking around, always checking my back to make sure that no one's chasing me.
Yeah.
And that really does mess with you, especially when you're taking on an enemy. I noticed that some people wait for that to happen. They're like watching you, like I'm gonna let them take on this enemy, then I'm gonna gank them really quick.
Sure, there's a really strong tactics, right? That's how you get the easiest kills on like groups of 2 or 3 people. You like lead them into some mobs, you just snare the one guy, mess one guy, and kill the third, and it kind of unrolls from there. It's really smart. That's actually like a bit of a problem for the game because interestingly, if you look at the character classes that we have in the game, most newbies who don't know about the game generally pick leather armor and a bow, right? So they're going to pick the sneaky long-range character of like, oh, this is a PvP game. I better be like stealthy and like shoot at people from range, right? Which is nice and all, but they also like tend to behave totally antisocial at some point. About half a year ago, basically every newbie who was in the game instantly started shooting at everybody else. And 90% of the people that then quit the game because they were like, everybody's attacking me all the time, I can't play this game. Please add safe zones. Like, please add safe zones is a thing we heard a lot. And this is one of the immutable cores of the game. There are not going to be any safe zones. So actually what we're doing is we're trying to figure out, and I think we've found a really good way so far, how to instill some sense of peace in people. So the thing that you could do in the beginning when your character creation, you can be like, I am looking for a clan. So flagging yourself as looking for a clan is pretty nice because it already communicates to people, this is a person who wants to like get in touch with me, right? Like he probably wants to play with me and maybe not only backstab me, though he can do that. Then we all added the next flag, there's a friendly flag. The friendly flag does nothing but displaying friendly and 2 smileys under your name. That's all it does. That's all it does. It doesn't force you to be friendly. I mean, if once you kill a player, it goes away for a long time. But again, this is just a way for people to say, hey, I'm friendly. And then the next thing we did is we added quick communication methods for players. So there's a hotkey V, and if you press that, you get 10 different things you can say. It's basically like they do in Smite. If you ever played that, with Smite you can say many, many things, and ours is like 10 different sayings. And the first one is greetings, and the second one is peace.
Peace,
and
yes.
Greetings and peace. These are the really important ones because that leads to people running into a jar going like, oh, greetings, instead of like, shit, if I now start typing into chat, he will probably backstab me, so I'll just kill him first, right? So it's all about these little nudges of giving people a sense of security and like allowing them to communicate a little bit before they start killing each other, because that's totally fine, right? That's the core of the game. Yeah.
Go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, I want to touch on this. It's such an interesting perspective on game development. It's just the freedom of choice to be essentially you're free to choose how you're going to behave with other players, and you guys don't seem to care how it's going to have an impact on the other player's experience, which in many ways remind me of how games used to be. I feel like older games way back then were a lot looser on. They were actually making the most of human nature instead of seeing it as a limitation to a player's experience. Can you comment on that? Like, because it's a tough choice, even from, I'm sure you've got a lot of people in marketing who would go against that and who would tell you don't do that because you're going to make the entry points to the people, to the noobs, like you said. And you're betting actually on human nature being profoundly good, I'd say. I don't know.
Well, I'm betting on human nature being human. So I'll explain what that means. So in general, you're right. Like everybody who works in marketing and everybody who has ever made or released an MMO or is working on an MMO, it's mostly going to be like, no PvP. PvP bad, open PvP even worse. Like it leads to people quitting your game. It's really bad. Just let them quest, and like if they can see each other, that's even better. I recently played a couple the Korean games, and they now have nice features such as do not display any other players, which is amazing since you're playing MMO, right? And that all comes from the like, if you put people in a very predictable system and other people are unpredictable, so put them in a predictable system where there are no humans, then they will likely do what you want them to do. They'll do their little grinding, they spin their little spinny wheels, and then eventually they put like on average give you $15 or so. Which is all nice, and I understand that you have to do that if you put 50 million in your game and you want 120 million out. But it also leads to this problem that all those games are kind of getting the same kind of boring, grindy thing where they sacrifice long-term motivation for short-term motivation. So they're monetizing off people who like play the game for like a month or 2 or 3 and then put out some money and then slowly get bored because the game is just a grinder like every other grinder. And PvE experience in my feeling never has been interesting because so damn predictable. So that's why I want to do something that's actually like a human interaction experience, which is really hard to predict, and it goes wrong a lot, and then people are sad, and then people cry, and people leave the game. But also for that reason, it can have the opposite effect. It can be like super awesome because like this guy could have just killed me, but then he didn't. That was really good for me. Or like I just fought 3 people and I was alone, and it wasn't a fair fight, but I won, and that's not something you can have in your really nice friendly game where it's like matchmaking 3-on-3 and you can't attack your clanmates, right?
What you're saying is that the punitive experiences are as punitive as the positive experiences are rewarding on a social level.
Yeah, I think it's like when there's no bad, there can be no good because it's all relative, right? So if the game is all like, here we're going to give you 5 experience points and a really nice visual effects, another 5 experience points, a really nice visual effects, and then 10 coins, it's kind of like blah, blah, blah. But once stuff can go wrong, it can also go really right. And that's the stuff that I actually care about. That's why I play games. If I didn't want to do that, I could just play a slot machine or, I'm not sure, watch TV. But like really deep experience only work that way. And the thing about, are humans inherently good or are they inherently bad? Well, they're inherently human, and humans have a lot of flaws, and humans are very susceptible to psychology and nudging and whatever. And you can use that for evil. Like I could nudge you to pay more money in my free-to-play grinder where there's card collections and random drops and all that kind of stuff, and I can use that to make a shit ton of money while you have a kind of meh experience. But I can also use that to allow people to actually get into a game where they can have like real like social interactions. So the thing where I allow you to flag yourself as friendly is kind of like a little bit of like nudging, right? It allows you to think when you start the game, oh, will I be a bad person or will I be a good person? And you flag yourself as good, and you're like, okay, now I'm a good person. I will probably act like a good person. And I'm not forcing you to do that in any way, right? You can still attack everybody on sight and grief newbies all you want, but you're unlikely to do that. And so that's the way I'm going about it. I want to nudge people in a direction that I think is going to be sustainable for them, because actually it's going to allow for a game to happen and not everybody to quit after about 10 seconds of playing. But it also leaves you the freedom in the end game to do whatever you want.
And sorry, Shane, one last question. Following on this, how are you seeing like society, the in-game society, evolving and shaping up? Like, are people building factions, or what's the phenomenon here?
So yes, people are building factions. We had it like we haven't done like a really huge amount of alpha testing, right? We have right now like we're 2 days into a 2-week kind of alpha, and we only had one like about 1 week alpha before that, and we're slowly making stuff longer. But the thing we notice is that the clans, like that's the in-game groups that we have, the clans that stick together are generally the ones that actually like meet in the game, that are like really new, that all like come to the thing where it's like same shared, okay, this is only totally new, I never met you, but now together we're going to build up something experience. And I don't know, some rules are like emerging from the whole thing. So like some people are like, I'm going to kill every noob 10 times because it's really fun. Others are like, no, maybe we should like be kind of responsible and not do that, and like just attack the people who we're actually in a war with, or like I'm just going to kill a noob once and not twice or something like that. So I think like some rules are actually happening. We had another playtest where people were pretty adamant about not fighting in the central town, making it pretty peaceful and stuff, even though there's no safe zone, right? There's no flag that says do that. That's the interesting thing. So some social dynamics, some social rules just evolve from the kind of players you have. And I'm also trying to like support that for example, we have a policy about grieving, and that policy is you're totally feel free to grieve. We're never going to punish you. We're not, like grieve as in using the in-game mechanics, right? We're never going to kick you out of the game for killing someone or killing them 10 times and looting all that stuff. That is core of the game. But always remember, like, there's a human on the other side. If you get them to leave the game, then you're going to play on your own, and never be verbally abusive, never hack, that kind of stuff. So we as like the devs have kind of that like first impulse has to come from us and what is allowed in our community and what's not. And yeah, that's how we're going forward. That's why we hope that like a interesting community is going to grow.
And it's interesting that you're into the whole psychological side of it. One of the things I found myself doing is I played the caster, and to show that I'm a friendly, what I like to do is I heal them before when they see me, I immediately heal them and they stop and they realize I'm not attacking. So my question is, are you noticing things like that, like things that you didn't see in development that players are doing to kind of talk to each other without talking in a way?
Kind of. So what I currently notice a lot is that even after 2 days, I'm building relationships to people. So when I thought about making the game, I was like, I was playing games where there was a couple 10,000 people in one game world, and the game world was pretty empty. And then like you met someone and you killed them and you never saw them again because I don't know, right? They logged out. They're a different place, whatever. In this game, it's kind of pretty small, so you like meet people again and you meet them again, you meet them again, you build relationships. So there's this one guy who I met on like the first 3 hours of playing, and I was like, hey, peace, and he was like, hey, peace, and I was like, hey, do you want to trade? And he was like, well, sure, and we traded some stuff. And since then, we've been kind of friends in the game. Whenever I meet him, like I give him a nice little heal, and then when I meet him and like he's fighting someone, I'm like helping him fight that guy, or like maybe I'm just standing there and like watching them see who wins, and then like rest the guy if he dies. But you start building relationships with people. That's pretty cool, because that's actually what an MMO is about.
And
right?
that's actually really interesting because, like you said, you have the power to attack him, and you don't. So you feel much more rewarded when you build that relationship with him, which I think is fantastic. And I think it's definitely, I want to say he's thinking outside the box, and as Fred was saying, it's going more to a traditional style of games, and I like that. Now, what do you find after seeing your game go live? What are you finding that players are doing the most? You were talking about they picked the archer and go leather. Is that like the standard, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to wreck everybody?
It's I would say the newbie response to an unknown world that has to them been described as a harsh PvP world. Though actually I'm right now seeing a lot of archers actually wearing splint mail. Splint mail gives you a couple like knockback and invulnerability abilities that I haven't seen for a while. I see that like different kinds of people pick different kinds of characters. So like most people who will pick an archer class tend to attack you on sight. There's not a lot of cooperation from them to normally be seen. People who use a staff or a totem that also do damage but also have like healing abilities tend to in general be like way less aggressive and more cooperative. So that's very interesting to see. And besides that, what do people do? They roam through the valley. They like first motivation is to get stronger, right? You want to find new combat abilities. You want to like make them stronger. You want to get equipment, that kind of stuff. That's the thing that's like is like the core growing experience on like a purely number side, and then they start meeting people, and then they run into 3 other people as one. They're like, oh no, I just died. That's not good. And they do it 5 times more, and then sometimes small groups start to fall. There's 2 people that I've just seen that haven't known each other before this alpha started, and they kind of grew to become a team. And I always see the 2 of them together. Right? They're not forming a group of 10 people or so they can steamroll everybody, but they're at least 2, so they can support each other. And that's really important. That's the feeling of like not being alone. Even though I also really enjoy like going totally alone through the valley and then like doing those like fights where you're 1 and they're 3, and actually maybe you'll like it. Huh? Very interesting.
And you, for some of our viewers, are they're seeing this game for the first time. You said that you could be an archer and pick not just leather armor. That you can
yes.
pick different armors. So how about, if you don't mind, explaining the differences between picking the armors, even if you pick like a caster and go with splint armor or something like that?
So in general, what we have is kind of a dual class system. So you always pick an armor class and you pick a weapon class. So both of those do 2 things. A, they change your stats a little bit. So if you pick a splint mail as armor, that obviously gives a little bit more HP, a little bit more resist against stuff. If you pick the scythe as a weapon, it actually gives you negative resist. Take that away because it's very aggressive, very like I deal damage to you, you deal damage to me kind of thing. And then both of those things give you abilities. Each weapon and armor set right now gives you access to 8 different abilities. That eventually is going to be more than just 8. But right now, over the course of the game server, you can only have 10 abilities at the same time in your ability bar, right? So you have 16, you have to pick from those. And weapons generally give you anything that is outwards facing and targeted. So with a bow, is pretty obvious that like mostly things are going to be projectile attacks that are going to fly somewhere. The staff has a lot of like healing abilities and that kind of stuff. They have like persistent AoEs that you put into place, that kind of thing. And armor abilities generally are more inwards focused and centered on your characters. It can be a self buff, it can be a speed buff, it can be a knockback, all around you centric, that kind of thing. And out of those two things, you build your character. And for a long time, I had the feeling that the weapon ability is actually more important because they allow you to like shoot people, right? Shooting people really important in a PvP game. Like you want their HP to go down while you're stays. But actually, all the like support abilities and buff abilities and like movement abilities come from the armor classes have gotten so important nowadays. It's always very important to mix both of them. And even though in the late game it's actually possible for you to only use weapon or only use armor abilities, people tend to not do that because it's always a mix of them.
That sounds to me like there must have been a tremendous amount of work done on just pure mathematics and balancing the game out between all the classes. How do you guys go about that?
So that's a very good question because I originally spent a lot of time on math and balancing that stuff and like basically like there's this set of thinking that you can put the whole game into math and you can translate every single effect you have in the game into a basic value. So for example, you base everything around damage per second. If I can nuke for 5 damage every second, that's 5 damage per second. If I can nuke for 10 damage every 2 seconds, it's also 5 damage per second. If I heal someone for 5 healing per second, that's kind of the same, right? And then you get to the point where you're like, so yeah, well, my character can slow someone down for 60%. How does it translate into damage per second? And that kind of works because then you're like, okay, sure, that's the average DPS. If he can't be next to me, then he can't do that DPS, or I can do that to him, so I can calculate that. And you get an ability like, okay, I'm going to create a wall of barrels. And you're like, shit, how does that translate into damage per second again? I don't know. And I was like, totally, I'm giving up on this shit. I don't know how to do this. And I got in touch with a couple of different game designers. I messaged Ralph Koster, for example, at Ultima Online, or David Serlin, who's like really into like combat game balancing. And David Serling actually said the thing that I'm going with right now that is like, you can't balance this in math. You can't. Like once you have a really complex game, you will not be able to ever balance it. Like if you can balance your game in math, then it's probably too simple to actually be a deep game. So don't ever try. The only thing that's important is to figure out, and I'm paraphrasing because obviously I don't have the experience that he has, is to figure out from the real experts, so the small number of people who actually are good at your game. There's a very, very small number from what he says, what is currently really strong and what is not.
I mean, this is something that the studio as big as Blizzard continuously struggles on. The Riot, you name it, balancing a PvP game is eternal. It's a never-ending battle. Would you guys say that? Are you happy right now with how things are balanced?
I am way happier than I ever was, which doesn't mean that I'm completely happy, but then honestly, I never have to be. One of the things that our game is about is experimentation and exploration, and that's not necessarily about exploration of the world map. It's also about exploring different characters, different builds, different abilities, different combinations. And so since we're going to plan, and we're probably going to talk about that later, they have a lot of different game worlds with different rule sets. We will never have perfect balance because we can say, hey, this game world, all archers do like 10%, 50% more damage, and there's no splint mail, and also run speed is twice as fast. And in this game world, you can only like have half the sight range, and for that your mana regeneration is twice. And also we now add a new class that has like a slingshot as a weapon, right? And so there's always gonna be imbalances. It's actually interesting to find out some of those imbalances. They shouldn't be so imbalanced that everybody rolls the exact same character that has like a bow and leather armor that always wins. But also there can be some imbalances, and then we're going to change them. Then we're going to patch them. And like, since our games are going to generally be relatively short, as for an MMO, like generally we plan to our alpha runs for 2 weeks. and maybe they'll run for 6 weeks at some point, but never forever. We can actually make sweeping changes. We can actually make nerfs and big buffs, and they're not going to affect you. You're not going to take away your character since you're going to starting a new one anyways. And so always like trying out what the current important, like what the current interesting thing in like the meta game and the balance is just part of the game. I think that's also part of the game for a MOBA. That's part of the game for a competitive like a card game and that kind of stuff. Like the finding out what is currently a great build is half of the fun. That's how I spend most of my time at Shadowbane, making builds for my character and my clan and like groups of 10 people, right? So I'm totally happy if there are imbalances in the game, and I just accepted that they will happen.
That's a fantastic way to look at it. And I think that definitely adds to knowing which class is important. I also think it also gives people who may think a class is underperforming a chance to try to make it work. And I think that's really important too, because like you said, I know you're into the psychological side to it, but us as humans, we like to prove people are wrong, right? And really triumph over things. One of the
Plus,
questions
there are people who really like to be underdogs. I'm sorry if I interrupted you. Some people really like to be underdogs, and if you're like, you can never have splint armor and a bow, it will never work. There will be like 2% of people are like, fuck you all. I'm gonna play exactly that. I'm gonna show you how good I am at playing that. So that's awesome.
What class would you say kind of has that underdog feel for you?
So stuff that always feels weird to people is like, for example, the rope and the scythe. So the scythe being a really melee weapon, and the rope being something that's about teleporting around and misdirection, that kind of stuff. And people are like, this obviously doesn't fit together. But then you try it and you're like, wow, I'm this like teleport melee mage character, super awesome. Or again, splint bow also doesn't kind of fit together in at first. But you're like, oh, all those knockback abilities that like give me room to actually use my bow, which does more damage when I'm further away. That really works well. So that's like stuff that, for example, we found out.
And it's interesting because like you won't expect that combo. So when you see it, even though you may have the upper hand, you're like taken by surprise immediately. You're like, oh, I'm not used to this. And to talk about the scythe, I actually like that you went with the scythe. Usually when you see that scythe, you think of like warrior type class. And you think of an axe or a giant broadsword. What made you go with the scythe? Like, why was the art direction towards the scythe?
Guild Wars. Guild Wars 1. Guild Wars 1
oh, nice.
had the dervish and the scythe, and I was like, this is awesome. I want to play this again. And what's the next weapon that we're gonna put into our game? It's like the next melee weapon. It's a spear and shield combination where you're like, oh wait, did I play Guild Wars? Did I remember that? Yeah. So that stuff, because I like. Honestly, I'm a little bored of like a sword and board. There's like shield and sword kind of style. So I just want to pick something that's different for once. Even though that was a little bit hard because the scythe kind of is a point blank AoE ability thing, and that's the only melee we have right now. So that's like kind of misses something that's more like traditional solo target focused, which we're gonna add next and stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to do something a little different. Like, the whole art direction setting of the game is, let's please not do this stuff again that everybody does. The like knight in shining armor,
yes.
The like wizard with the pointy hat, and then the elves, and then the rolling green hills. And I'm like really throwing up whenever I see it. I just can't see it. There are really awesome games out there with like super interesting game systems. And they always go for the like really generic approach to fantasy because that's what people have seen. And I guess that probably is what sells. And maybe it's a stupid decision to do what we do because like we're gonna make less money, but at least it's a little bit more interesting.
I think that it's very innovative. Now, it's funny you're talking about the art direction. I want to talk about it. Anyone's in the channel and moving forward, you should definitely check out the artwork you guys have. It's on the stream right now, and the art is fantastic.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Who does your
it really
art?
is.
And how did we get to the direction? Because this art is just like the art itself. I feel like I can buy the art book and just read the story and not even play the game. I want to play the game, but it's like the art is just fantastic.
I'm really glad you said it. I'm going to pass it on to Michael and Kelsey, who are currently doing all of our 2D art. So Michael is our art director and lead concept artist, and he joined us, I don't know, many moons ago, 2 years ago. So he's in Berlin. He's a freelancer, and he has this really interesting brushy art style that doesn't do a lot. Like in his concept art with outlines and stuff, it always feels like very sketchy and flowy, and that's exactly what I always like wanted for the game. The game is supposed to look a little bit painterly. It's supposed to have that post-apocalyptic influence, and we like worked on that for a long time to figure out how do we do post-apocalypse without it being just like completely brown, orange-brown all the time. How do we make a game that's like clearly readable as a PvP game, but it doesn't look like a comic? So a lot of like games again, since World of Warcraft kind of turned to this Blizzardy style of very bubbly, comic-y art, very like bright colors, oversaturated, like we try to like kind of find something that is not that. So it's basically a combination of me being a grouch about things I don't like, and Michael actually being the person who's like, okay, so this is stuff you don't like. Do you maybe like this? Should we like try this out, right? That's a concept art workflow. He's like, here are 10 different things that I think could work. Like, let's pick one and like iterate on that stuff.
But it's funny to me that you just talked about the standards, the cliche when it comes to just portraying epicness in a game, and you guys wanting to stem away from that. And I feel like to compliment the artists behind the artwork, you guys have you do a fancy, nice looking layout, because you go on just go on Google Images and type that style, and you'll see a variety of artwork that is amazing. And but it has its own thing. Like it's it's very unique. It's in its own way, and at the same time, it totally depicts epicness and everything gamers love. So 2 thumbs up on that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
but that's promotion, like promo art, right? There's always a big divide for me between promo artworks and concept artworks for the game. So the stuff we normally see for games, the promotional artworks, they're meant to depict an emotion and an experience in the game, and they often like over exaggerate that, right? So if you look at like the image we used for a Kickstarter campaign was like this like band of friends going up on the city, and it's like really like epic and stuff.
Yeah,
sometimes for the game you have to like tone it down a little bit and just make it a little bit more readable and clearer.
Yeah, I was getting ready to ask you that. The picture that I think is most iconic is the one with the guy with the scythe on the front and the flag is flying. Now, is that something like, how did that come about? Was that something, because I'm sure it has to be a lot of work putting in when you're finally saying, okay, it's time to put it up there, and this is what we're going to use to represent the game. Was that something that you guys came up with, or did the artist hit you with it and you were like, this is it, this is perfect?
So it's a combination, because the hard thing for me is to sum up the game in one picture. Once you go MMO, it becomes kind of a weird hybrid of so many things. Like, it's about combat, it's about exploration, it's about friendship, it's about building up, it's about being imprisoned and fighting your way out. All those 5 things, now put them in one image and you're like, I don't know. So relatively early on, we came up with a set of, I think, about 7 key visuals, key scenes that are supposed to depict a couple, like just one aspect of it that I always saw as like a series of images. And Michael has been working on those for on and off the last 2 years. And we have a couple of those. And the first one was like the really open PvP, full loot focused. So like one guy with a bow and one guy getting the arrow in the back, and like being really sandwiched between 2 people. I was like, oh shit, this is an open PvP game. And this one was more about the like band of friends aspect, right? The social aspect. There's also one that just depicts 3 people sitting in a settlement, chilling and preparing, and it's also a part of the game. And eventually I hope we have this like whole series of 7 or 8 images that depict the whole thing, which is not great for marketing because you can't just put that into like one banner or something, but that's the breadth of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. My favorite is the I think my favorite artwork is the one with the guy that kind of has like that cowboy hat who's like pointing. It just kind of gives this really awesome, like, I don't know, this fantasy feel to it. Like the game has a lot going on, and I think that's like the biggest part of your game. I want to say is when I'm playing the game, I feel like I'm learning stuff, but there's just so much more happening. That's like, you just got to figure it out. You got to go out there and give it a shot. And playing your game, like I'm watching them play the game right now, and it's really interesting because it's fun. It's funny to watch when they get into a fight and then they fight for a bit and then they see each other again and they're like, I don't want to fight right now. You know what I mean? And they kind of like walk away. And when you're playing the game and you're starting a brand new character, have you experienced like a lot of people ganking you immediately? Do you get frustrated or do you like welcome it as a personal player?
Yeah, so as a personal player, people don't gank me because honestly I'm better than them. Like I wouldn't say I'm great at games in general because most of the time I lose. And even in my own game, if I play against someone who's actually been playing PvP games for 15 years, I lose. They're just better than me. They're faster. They're more relaxed than I am, and I die. But when I meet a random newbie in my game so far, I don't have big problems with that, because at least I know how to build a character. I know what the abilities I need early on, so I'm not stressed. And actually, like that's so. A reason why we're making, and why especially I want to make this game, is because and that sounds super head in the clouds, but I want people to learn stuff, right? I don't want to make another slot machine where the only thing you do is waste time and just like zone out and be like, oh, okay, just wasted 6 hours on whatever, don't care. I actually want people to have an experience where they experiment new stuff and they learn stuff. And one thing I learned in games is to never be angry about stuff, to never, like, I get killed, yes, and then I lose my stuff, and I lose the armor I just built that took me two hours to make, and then I get killed again, and then I lose my settlement because someone burns it down. We've been working this for 2 weeks, and honestly, I don't fucking care anymore. It's like, it's the one thing you learn is that, like, loss in a game is never permanent. It's always like it goes away. I mean, like, real life is a little bit different. When you die, you're dead. You can't change that, I would say, but you can learn to be really relaxed about, like, small defeats, and, like, to go on, and the feeling of, like, I just lost, okay, whatever, I'll just take a break, I'll go out, I'll get a coffee, I'll come back, and then I play again. That is a thing you can really learn, and that's what I do in my own game. I tend to generally play it in, like, 1 hour sessions or so, where I go out, I find some fights, I have some fun, and I win or I lose, and then I take a break, and I later come back. Yeah, that's awesome. So I read, like, so I just posted to my Facebook thing that said, here are the 6 amazing things I just did in my own game in the last hour. I'm so psyched about this game, and people were like, yeah, obviously you love your own game, thanks, we know it. And, like, I was like, but actually it's true, I really enjoy playing this. I'm not sure if there's gonna be more than 1,000 people out in the world who actually enjoy it too, but at least I'm really happy with what I'm doing. So I've honestly been playing the game for the last 2 days all the time, and yeah.
I have a question about that, Shane, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, go for it.
I think did you guys kickstart the project?
We did one Kickstarter, which only got us about 2/3 of where we wanted to go. So kind of, but also kind of not. At least it didn't give us any money.
Okay, because what's great about what we're hearing here is that you pretty much built the game that you wanted to play. And yet at the same time, you're still very much connected to the community, in the sense that right now you're in early access, you're in alpha testing, you're really going about listening to feedback and trying to make the game that people want. And at the same time, you're not willing to make many concessions. You've got a series, you've got a very specific idea of what you want to put out, and you feel like it's for the community's best interest at heart. You're not trying to make billions. You're trying to make a great game. At least that's the impression I'm getting from talking to you, Alex. Can you answer that? I guess my question is: has the community influenced the game in any direction that you guys might not have wanted to take it?
No, actually no. And the thing is, there's 2 different kinds of feedback. So there's the thing that people say. That's people write on the forums and the emails that we get, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm really happy about that feedback, because often there are ideas in there and concepts in there that I wouldn't have thought of myself. And so a lot of features that we have came from that kind of thing. But also the more important thing I feel in game design is to actually observe what people do and know what they say. So there's 2 kinds of ways. Like, you can watch people play, like you can sit them in front of a computer, be like, I'm going to sit next to you and let you play and I watch you. Or the equivalent nowadays actually is like you watch someone play the game on the stream, which is amazing. Like, once the show is done, I'm going to go back, going to watch all of it. I'm going to learn from what you guys did and what worked out and what didn't, or from just playing it yourself. But it's a really... Huh?
No, I've just been running for my life.
Yeah,
I go up to everybody.
engaged.
I'm like, peace. Oh, it does work. And then like 3 of them show up, and I'm like, oh no.
But in general, it's like So I'm not sure yet if the whole like trade-off works between the like there's this really strong vision that I have and I can budge on the vision, but there's also needs that people have and stuff that I don't understand and stuff that I didn't understand and mistakes that I've made and like many things I've made in the game were like completely broken and like shit once we put them in. Like a lot of systems are still not as good as I want them to be. The crafting system is not as good enough as I want it to be. The skill training system I want to rework. I have lots of feedback from people on that, and it's this like balance act between like the core of the game has to stay in a way that actually like the game experience is how it should be, and I couldn't like let the players make the decision because it's really hard to do like a group decision on like what is the core experience, the immovable thing. Most people don't have that like long-term perspective and those like have seen all the options, but also I need players to actually point me at where I'm wrong, both through their actions. So for example, playing for 10 minutes and logging out and being like, this is the worst game ever, I just got ganked 10 times. And also through their feedback when they like send me emails saying like, hey, for example, like it's really hard to not see your clan mates when they are in the bushes or when they are like somewhere on the map and you're not there. Can you please add a feature like that? And I was like, oh, I never thought about it, but yeah, you're totally right. It's probably useful to see that. And so it's like the balance between that.
And talking about that, talk about watching the community, giving you feedback. Is there things that people are not doing that you guys were doing in development? And you're like, wow, they're not actually doing this. Like, is there, like you said, crafting system could be better, but is there something you're noticing that players are just not doing that you need them to do?
So crafting was one example where I had this like really fancy crafting system where it's not just getting better, it's actually like you get more options of how you tweak stuff, and people were like, yeah, it's not getting better, I'm just not gonna deal with it, I'm just gonna ignore this whole system, like equipment doesn't matter. And I'm like, okay, I heard you. So now equipment has a really has a power progression. It doesn't make you massively stronger. Honestly, like if you're a good player and you don't wear any equipment and the other person has like the best equipment in the game, yeah, they might have a slightly like improved chances. But if you're a better player, you still win. It's like still very much balanced.
That's interesting.
Good. That's good.
But I personally like. So, are you saying that the RPG elements are there, but they're not evolved to a point that they're a game changer?
Kind of. They're more motivational features. So it's important for people to get better equipment that shows you bigger numbers, that shows you growth. But also, I can't make a game like World of Warcraft where 5 item levels just do like 1000% in power, and like the +5 level guy always wins. That's just not fun, right? So I have to kind of strike the balance again between giving people and even myself. Like I noticed this on myself now that I actually like see some progression in equipment, power. I actually like interact with the system way more. I care about that I have like gear that is on like the current power curve on the server or above. It's not going to really make me win those fights, but maybe it's this advantage of like 50 hit points that just made it so I kind of had the feeling that I won it. And that's for example is something that without the community I wouldn't have done. I would be able to have never done testing, would have made my system, put it out, and everybody would have played and be like, yeah, this is totally boring, I don't need this, and goodbye. So it's really good that we like iterate on that stuff a lot.
So if it's not the grind to get the gear to keep people playing, what are you guys betting on?
So it kind of is. So there's different levels of what motivates you, right? So the minimal level of motivation is just how it feels to play, like the movement, the shooting. That stuff is like a motivational thing in itself. But then there's the next level where generally you have a goal of like, I want to upgrade my weapon by 1 tier this time, or I want to find a new ability, or I want all my abilities to be like 1 tier higher. That's the next thing that normally wraps around that. And the next thing is like, okay, today I want to win this one big fight about this resource spot that is then going to give me the resources to build this next building for my settlement. There's another layer around that. And that's what we're currently doing. And then the latest layer in our current version of the game is that there are leaderboards that actually show who's currently, well, they're leaderboards, right? And they're interesting leaderboards because they're made up of 2 different systems. One is a system where you donate resources and turn them into respect. Kind of respect is what we call the leaderboard victory points. And this requires you to actually give away stuff that you would have used to make your character stronger. So it's a really hard ask, right? And the system also combines a respect system where you daily can give your respect, so points, to other players. And this leads to people being like, hey, thank you for doing a nice thing. I'm going to reward you with this. Or, hey, if you want to join my clan, I demand your respect right now. That kind of thing, which I find super interesting. And that's the next layers, right? People want to win this game world now, want in the end be the clan that has like the highest respect, or was the most efficient of getting there, or the person who has like the most respect. And then around that, we're going to build the next layer, which is going to be actually like progressing yourself as like your account, where you actually have different kind of achievements. For example, like on one game world, you won without ever getting killed, or on this one game world, you actually played till the end, even though you only had 10 respawns, or in this other game world, you played an archer with this weird splint mail combination, which, so that kind of thing, and you progress as a player, make different things and experiences and missions. And all that's like layered and layered and layered on top, and that in the end, hopefully, is the thing that keeps you playing for a long time without relying on like really cheap reward mechanics such as bling bling sound effect, drizzle effects, coins, and numbers that are just rising.
And I think Alucard actually had a couple of questions. He was asking about what did you have in mind, Alucard? I see that you were
I
talking
noticed
chat.
just a few things. I don't know if they're like fully implemented yet or just in the works. Like, let's say I just ran into a donation storage or donation stand. What does that actually?
What is that? Yeah.
Mhm.
So the donation system is one of the ways that clans can get respect, so points to win the game. It works like this. Every, I think, 3 days, the valley gets attacked from the people who actually put you there. We call them the jailers. And in order to repel this attack, a certain amount of resource donations is required. And at these tents, you can donate those resources for your clans. And it takes 5 minutes for this donation to go through. And once it goes through, this like donation amount gets like checked, and like you rise in like this donation round. In the end, if you are like the clan that donated the most, you get a sheer ton of respect. If you're like the 7th clan, you get like less than that, right? And so you want to be kind of in there, but you also kind of don't want to put too much in, because obviously it doesn't help you to put 10 times as much in as everybody else. You don't get more points from that. And these are points where you actually do that. And they are in the center of the map. And once you put a donation in and click donate, it notifies everyone on the server, and everybody who comes there can easily take stuff out. So they can easily take your resources from you. So these are actually some of the like PvP hotspots, because whenever like an opposing clan is like, I'm going to donate a lot to the thing, and you're like, wait, I don't want you to get the respect for that, and you obviously run there and you try to take it from them. And so that's what you saw, the respect donation tents that actually are going to get a better visual asset at some point, that are in the valley.
Okay, cool. And also, all right, what are the advantages of having settlement?
Having a settlement, so it gives you a shared secure storage. If you don't have a settlement, you can either drop your stuff in a barrel in the valley and everybody can take it. You can put it in your own, and then it's shared, but like it's not secure, right? You can put it in your own stash, and then it's secure but very limited in size, and you can share it with people. And if you have a clan, you actually have a storage building where you can put stuff in, and you can say who can take out or can't take it out, and you share resources, which is important. Then settlements are the only way to get the best equipment and the highest skill levels in the game. That's it. Like all the other stuff, like you can build equipment on the game map, you can do training on the game map, but it's generally like limited to a certain amount. And the other thing a settlement gives you is peace, because you can build a wall around it, and then nobody can get in if nobody's like so stupid to leave the doors open so that everybody can run in. That happens. But in general, it gives you like a little bit of peace and safety for you and your clan. So that's what a settlement provides right now. And later it might do more than that, territory control, fancy things, but that's what I do right now.
Okay, awesome.
And talk about it before I forget. I'm sure you play with your team all the time. Is there moments when your teammates or your coworkers decide to gang up on you? Just say, you know what? I'm tired for the day. It's 30 minutes before closing. It's time to. It's just time to wreck everybody.
I would really like to say that, but honestly, no, because they're so fucking nice. They're like really friendly people. Like the two people that I spend most of my time with playing, CB and Marcus, are two programmers. They're just super nice. They're like very supportive. Like they play characters that heal other people a lot. And like like CB, for example, is like really good in PvP, and we're like a really great team, and we kill people together a lot. But he would really rarely backstab me. We often do like duels and stuff, and we do a lot of one-on-one fights and really hard and like gank each other. But it's always like super friendly because they're just so nice people. I'm sorry that I'm saying this on like a public stream. I hope I can say that they're nice, because obviously they're like really hardcore PvP, like hardcore RPKs, and like you shouldn't mess with them in the game. But also they're really nice.
No, that is fantastic. Hey, I know Caitlin likes to take questions from the chat. I didn't know if she had any. She was waiting. I know she's been a little quiet.
I have two questions of my own. Nobody in chat seemed to be very inquisitive today, but I actually was curious, behind the name Das Tal, how did you come up with it, or does it have any meaning? I'm not German, so I don't know.
So it does have a meaning. It means the valley, just the valley. This is the placeholder name that the game had when we started working on it, because we needed a name. And we never changed it. Very simple. We just haven't changed it. There have always been like ideas of like, hey, can we find a better name? Can we find something nicer? And then many Germans were like, oh, ooh, Das Tal. Oh, I wouldn't use that name. Like the Americans are really going to hate that name. They're going to hate that name. You can't use a German name ever for a game. And then I meet our players and they're like, what? Das Tal? That sounds awesome. Like
Wolfenstein?
Exactly. Like, I know some German, this is awesome. Or like, I have no idea what this means, but it sounds fantasy. Just use it. So yeah, we're sticking with it so far.
It works.
And I love the fact that you guys are not listening to whatever mainstream audience, publishers are telling you. You're going with your gut, and I think the product is going to shine because of it.
Thanks.
I also, watching Alucard play, I'm seeing so many archers and mages, and when you're on a team like that, if you're both backliners, is there somebody who can come up front and maybe soak some of that damage there? Do you have a way of that happening? It was just my own curiosity.
We do, and I want more of that. So what you're going to notice in the game is that it's really bad to stand in a line, because you're always going to hit each other, right? So it tends to be useful to like circle out, and kind of like in an RTS where you try to build this like arc with your units. Yeah, there are ways to soak damage. The Rogue, for example, has an ability that makes the character really invulnerable to physical damage, which is really good to block archer projectiles. The Splint Mail, has a lot of abilities that like make him invulnerable, give him extra health, turn damage into healing, that kind of stuff. So that's used for that. So for example, like if a big fireball comes in, and the thing is like a really slow projectile, it's good if you like jump in and like let it explode in the enemy, that kind of stuff. And I want more of that. So the next weapon class I want in the game, Spear and Shield, is going to be a lot about reflecting projectiles, for example. So standing in the front line and reflecting projectiles back at the others. But at the same time, you have to make sure that you're not standing in the way of your own archers and mages, for example, right? So there are specific rules that players developed. For example, how melees are supposed to circle around the enemy and like not stand behind them, not in front, but actually like on the side of them. It's very interesting. But yeah, it's all about that positioning, and I hope we can do more of that. There's an ability in the game that right now allows the Splint Mail character to actually like protect people behind him so they get less damage. And honestly, it's not very well done yet. It's the first iteration. It's a little bit shaky and stuff, but that's kind of a way that I wanna do more with.
And I have to get this question in. This is a personal question. How are you going to avoid people from setting up certain groups? Because you're talking about setting up like a tank class, and I kind of feel like that's kind of what leaves it open right now to kind of pick whatever you want. Whereas if there was like a tank soaker type thing, then it might be like everyone's going to have this guy on their team in order to PvP. Or is that what you're planning on?
I don't plan on preventing people to do things. I actually want to find out what kind of spec groups people are going to come up with. So far, the approach has always been very balanced. So people have like mixed a lot of different stuff. I expect that at some point there will be a flavor of the month where like there are groups where everybody has like a bow and splint mail or something else. That's totally fine for a while. That's again, it might be a point where I change the balancing a little bit to like encourage more diversity. we're gonna see that we set up more synergies. So that's a thing that I haven't been very good at yet, which is synergies between different kind of between different players actually. So right now, for example, the totem has an ability that slowly heals you over time and also increases the direct healing you get, right? The like big heal numbers. Problem is totem can't do those big heal numbers. So now you need a staff who actually has those big heal numbers to trigger that. And that's stuff I want to work more with. Abilities that only work if a second other class that can't be you is around. We already tried that and it like didn't work out on the first try. It was like very confusing for some abilities. Like we had a set where every basic attack for every weapon and every ability from every armor affected one other ability in another set and like triggered something. It was super confusing and people were like, I have no idea what this is. So I haven't been good with that yet, but I want more of that.
And
so
I think it's fantastic because I feel like that's something that Blizzard lost, is having everyone mean something. And if you don't have this class, you're like, well, I don't have the best group. And then it kind of makes you feel like, you know, like Lord of the Rings, like, oh, well, right? In Lord of the Rings, they had to work with people that they didn't necessarily agree with, but they provided something to the team that was meaningful.
Yeah. And I know why they did that, because it makes it way easier for everybody to have a average experience, right? For nobody to have a bad experience because you cannot go on a raid because you don't have a priest right now, which is a bad experience for people. But also, like, you're taking away the experience of, I'm the priest, I'm the one who actually keeps everybody alive, and I love playing healer classes. Like, it sounds like I always go around doing solo PvP. I love playing healers a lot in group scenarios. And there are some people and there are some designers who say, don't make healers. Healers are the worst thing. They're really boring. They only interact with other players and never really with the mobs. They're not really active. And I'm like, no. Like, people really love playing healers. It's a totally different role. It's like where you keep someone alive and they don't have to directly interact with the enemy archers or something. And that's super awesome. And yes, I think it's totally fine for a group of 10 people to require a healer in our game. And maybe you find a spec group that doesn't need it, but I will still put healers in my game and I won't make everybody a complete damage dealing and self-healing character, because yeah, it's kind of a little bit boring.
Well, I mean, the game looks fantastic. I'm sure everyone here is excited. I want to give a big thanks to DJ Sketch and Alucard for streaming the game live. And Alexander, again, thank you so much for coming here on OPN to talk about your game, Das Tal. Before we go, is there anything you want to tell everyone here that they may not be seeing on your website or haven't seen in the trailer? Anything to look forward to about your game?
That's a really good question. So right now we're running this like little pre-alpha 2 test where we figure a couple things out about balancing. There is going to be a big alpha test coming up in most likely May. And so everybody who wants to play in that, I suggest that right now you sign up with a newsletter, because there's a good chance that we're not going to let everybody who signs up in. If you like, the earlier in, the better. And there's going to be a really big test. It's going to be for US players and for European players, separate servers, perfect ping, that kind of thing. So yeah, now is a really good time to sign up for that, because that's going to be the biggest test we've done for a while.
That's fantastic. And what day is that, so we can get that confirmed for everyone here in Twitch?
I don't want to give a date because I have no official date, but it's going to be likely in May, so sign up now and not later.
Okay, well, again, thank you for coming on OPN. We appreciate it. I look forward to playing this game more. Hopefully we can have you on the show again. It's been fantastic. For our viewers watching us today, we are OPN, Overpowered Noobs. We do have another show coming on at 7 p.m. Eastern Time where we're talking about Overpower. Same thing, we'll have them on the stream just like this. And hopefully I can see a lot more viewers from today join us later tonight. But Alexander, it's been a blast. The game is fantastic. The art direction is phenomenal. And I really do hope to see more from you. So thanks for coming on the show today, man.
Thanks so much. Thanks for hosting me. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for playing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Bye-bye.
You tell us when we're off, Lucar.